The lights in the great meeting hall were bright and cold. Ambassador Lisa Morgan sat at the small human table, watching alien faces from 12 different worlds. The Centauri diplomatic station floated in deep space, far from any star. It was built for meetings like this one. The hall was huge. Each alien race had their own section with chairs or platforms made for their bodies. The bird-like avians perched on tall poles. The rock creatures called lithoids sat on stone blocks. The aquatic threnodi floated in water tanks with speakers to let them talk. At the center of the room stood High Chancellor Vex of the Valdorian Empire. His blue skin was covered in glowing marks that showed his rank. He was 12 feet tall and his voice boomed across the hall. "The Zephyrian Empire has gone too far," Chancellor Vex said. His forearms moved as he spoke. "They have taken 3 star systems in the past year. They enslave every race they find. They strip mine entire worlds until nothing is left." Lisa looked at her small datapad. The numbers were bad. The Zephyrians had 400 warships. They had weapons that could burn a planet's surface in hours. Their leader, High Admiral Korath, was known across the galaxy as a brutal killer. "We must act," said Speaker Zith of the Crystalline Collective. Her body looked like living glass, and light danced through her as she spoke. "Our bioships can stop them. We have 600 vessels ready for war." The other aliens nodded. The Valdorians had 800 ships. The aquatic threnodi could field 300 vessels. Even the smaller races had fleets of 50 to 200 ships each. Chancellor Vex looked around the room. "Each member world will contribute forces. We will crush the Zephyrian threat with overwhelming numbers." Lisa stood up. Her small human form looked tiny next to the giant aliens. "Earth wishes to contribute to this action." The room went quiet. Then someone started laughing. It was a high chirping sound from the avian section. Soon other aliens joined in. The sound echoed off the metal walls. "Humans?" Chancellor Vex's voice was full of doubt. "What can your small world offer? You have been in space for less than 200 years. Most races here have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." Lisa kept her face calm. She had expected this. "We can provide 12 ships." The laughter got louder. One of the lithoids, whose voice sounded like grinding stone, spoke up. 12 ships? We thought you meant 1,200. Or perhaps 12,000. "No," Lisa said clearly. 12 ships. But they are good ships." An avian representative flapped his wings. "Good ships? Child, the Valdorian fleet has 800 vessels. Each one is the size of a small city. What can 12 tiny human ships do?" From across the room, a new voice cut through the noise. It came from a communication screen that had just turned on. The face that appeared was reptilian, with red eyes and sharp teeth. High Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian Empire had been listening. "So the insects from Terra want to play war?" Korath's voice was like oil over steel. "How amusing. 12 ships? My morning patrol has more vessels than that." Lisa felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "Our ships are advanced. We believe they can make a difference." Korath laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Advanced? You pathetic creatures barely learned to leave your own star system. I have been conquering worlds since before your species discovered fire. Your 12 ships will provide excellent target practice for my gunners." Chancellor Vex raised one of his 4 hands. "Perhaps Earth should focus on humanitarian aid. Leave the fighting to those with proper military forces." "Yes," agreed Speaker Zith. 12 ships would be lost in the first minutes of battle. It would be a waste of life. Lisa looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked sorry for her. Others were still laughing quietly. A few looked angry that she had wasted their time. "I understand your concerns," she said, "but Earth has made its decision. We will send 12 ships to fight the Zephyrians." High Admiral Korath's image leaned forward on the screen. "Excellent. I will personally destroy your tiny fleet. The galaxy will see what happens to insects who challenge the Zephyrian Empire." The communication screen went dark. The aliens in the hall began talking among themselves, making plans for the real war. Lisa gathered her papers and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she heard bits of conversation. The Valdorians were discussing attack formations. The Crystalline Collective was planning supply lines. The aquatic Threnodi were singing war songs. Nobody talked about the human contribution. 12 ships were too few to matter in their plans. Lisa reached the door and paused. She touched a small device on her wrist and spoke quietly. "Admiral Sullivan, this is Ambassador Morgan. The council meeting is over." A man's voice came through the device, clear and calm. "I heard the whole thing, Lisa. How did they take the news?" "About as well as we expected. They think we're sending 12 small ships to die." "Maybe we are," Admiral Sullivan said. "But we're not sending small ships, are we?" Lisa smiled for the first time since the meeting started. "No, Jake, we're not." Far away at the edge of Zephyrian space, Admiral Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Ranger. Through the big front window, he could see 11 other ships, floating in perfect formation. Each vessel was 800 meters long and bristling with weapons that no alien had ever seen before. Dr. Alan Pierce walked up beside him. The scientist was reviewing data on his tablet. "The Zephyrians have no idea what they're facing," he said. Captain Amy Foster's voice came over the communication system from her ship, the UES Falcon. "Admiral, all ships report ready for action. We're waiting for your orders." Sullivan nodded. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's tiny fleet. They thought 12 ships could not make a difference. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," he said into his microphone. "Set course for the Helios system. It's time to show the galaxy what human ships can do." The 12 vessels turned as one and jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, they left empty space. Ahead of them waited a war that would change the galaxy forever. The Helios system was dying. Admiral Jake Sullivan watched the main screen on his bridge as the 12 human ships came out of faster-than-light travel. What he saw made his jaw tighten with anger. 3 planets orbited the yellow star called Helios. The first planet was a ball of burning rock. The second planet had once been covered with blue oceans where the peaceful Threnodi people lived. Now the water was turning red with blood and ash. "My God," whispered Dr. Alan Pierce as he studied his readings. "They're bombing civilian cities." On the screen, Zephyrian warships hung in space like metal vultures. Their weapons fired down at the planet without stopping. Each blast killed thousands of innocent people. The Threnodi had no weapons to fight back. They were a race that made art and music, not war. Commander Rick Hayes stood at the tactical station. His face was hard as he counted enemy ships. "Sir, I count 47 Zephyrian vessels in orbit around the second planet. They're using heavy plasma cannons on population centers." Sullivan felt sick. The Zephyrians were not just conquering the world. They were enjoying the killing. "Any sign they know we're here?" "No, sir," Hayes replied. "We came out of jump drive at the edge of the system. We're too far away for their sensors to detect us." Lieutenant Kate Murphy looked up from her console. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with bright eyes and quick hands. "Admiral, request permission to launch a stealth drone. We need to see what we're up against." Sullivan nodded. "Do it, Kate, but keep it invisible. I want to know everything about those ships before they know we exist." Kate's fingers danced over her controls. On the human ships, technology worked differently than anywhere else in the galaxy. Instead of big, clumsy machines, everything was small and precise. The drone that launched from the UES Ranger was no bigger than a dinner plate, but it was packed with sensors that could see through solid metal. The drone moved through space without making any noise or light. It was coated with materials that bent radar waves around it like water flowing around a rock. To enemy sensors, it was invisible. Dr. Pierce watched the drone's readings on his screen. "Fascinating. Their ships are much larger than ours, but they're built very differently." Chief Engineer Bob Wright joined them at the science station. Bob was an older man with gray hair and hands that always smelled like machine oil. He had built parts of every ship in their fleet. "Look at those energy readings, Doc. They're putting almost all their power into weapons. Very little goes to shields or defense. That's because they've never fought anyone who could hurt them, Sullivan said. They're used to beating up helpless planets. The drone got closer to the Zephyrian fleet. Kate guided it between their ships, recording everything. The enemy vessels were huge, some over 1,200 meters long. They looked like floating cities with weapons sticking out everywhere. Their armor is thick but simple, Dr. Pierce noted. Just heavy metal plates. And look at their weapons, pure brute force. Big plasma cannons that use enormous amounts of energy. Hayes studied the tactical display. Sir, their formation is terrible. They're all bunched together with no coordination. If one ship has a problem, it could hit 3 others. They've never needed to worry about real tactics, Sullivan realized. When you have 400 ships attacking peaceful farmers, you don't need strategy. The drone continued its mission, scanning deeper into enemy systems. What it found made the humans even angrier. The Zephyrians were not just bombing cities, they were taking prisoners. Thousands of Threnody people were being loaded into cargo ships like animals. Slaves, Bob Wright said, his voice full of disgust. They're taking slaves. Suddenly alarms started ringing on the drone's channel. Kate looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, I'm getting readings of a Zephyrian patrol coming this way. 3 ships moving fast. Can they see us? Sullivan asked. No, sir, but they'll spot. The drone if it stays where it is. Bring it back, we have enough information. Kate worked quickly to recall the drone. On the main screen, they could see 3 Zephyrian ships approaching their position. Each one was about the same size as a human vessel, but they looked different. Where human ships were sleek and covered with sensors, the Zephyrian ships were covered with spikes and weapons. They're doing a routine patrol, Hayes reported. Standard search pattern. They have no idea we're here. The lead Zephyrian ship was close enough now that they could see details on its hull. It was painted with symbols that looked like skulls and flames. Weapons ports lined its sides like the teeth of some metal beast. Dr. Pierce was still studying the readings from their scouting mission. Jake, I found something important. Their shields all operate on the same frequency, and their point defense systems are almost non-existent. What does that mean? Sullivan asked. It means they've never fought an enemy that used missiles or small fighters. They're only prepared for ship-to-ship combat with energy weapons. Bob Wright smiled for the first time since they arrived. That's their first mistake. The Zephyrian patrol ships were now close enough that their scanners began to detect something. On the enemy flagship, alarms started to sound. Unknown contacts detected, came a voice over the communication system. The Zephyrians were using an open channel, which meant the humans could hear everything they said. Report, ordered the patrol leader. His voice was harsh and full of metal sounds. 12 vessels, sir. Design unknown. They are smaller than our ships, but different. There was silence for a moment. Then the patrol leader spoke again. Identify yourselves, unknown ships. Admiral Sullivan looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. Every person knew their job. Every system was working perfectly. These were not just ships. They were weapons built by a race that had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Sir? Hayes asked. Do we respond? Sullivan thought about the burning cities below. He thought about the Threnody people being loaded into slave ships. He thought about High Admiral Korath laughing at Earth's tiny fleet. Open a channel, he said. The communication screen flickered to life. The face of a Zephyrian officer appeared. His reptilian features showed surprise at seeing a human face. I am Admiral Sullivan of the Earth Federation, Jake said calmly. You are attacking innocent people. Surrender now and we will not harm you. The Zephyrian officer stared for a moment. Then he began to laugh. It was the same ugly sound they had heard from High Admiral Korath. Humans. The insects have come to play war. How many ships do you have, little Admiral? 5? 10? 12, Sullivan replied. The laughter got louder. 12 ships? We have 47 vessels in this system alone. Admiral Korath has 400 ships total. You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Sullivan said. But you're still attacking innocent people. Last chance to surrender. The Zephyrians' laughter stopped. His red eyes grew angry. "You will burn for your arrogance, insect. All ships, attack formation. Destroy these pathetic creatures." The communication screen went dark. On the tactical display, the 3 patrol ships turned toward the human fleet. More ships were breaking away from the planet to join them. Dr. Pierce looked at his instruments. "Jake, they're charging weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts." Commander Hayes smiled grimly. "All ships, report ready for combat, sir. Weapons charged, shields up." Admiral Sullivan looked out at the enemy ships approaching his small fleet. The galaxy had laughed at 12 human vessels. The Zephyrians thought they were facing helpless prey. They were about to learn the difference between a human ship and everything else in the galaxy. "All ships," Sullivan said into his communicator. "This is Admiral Sullivan. You know what those monsters are doing to innocent people. Show them what happens when they mess with Earth. Weapons free. Engage." The first missiles launched from the human ships looked like tiny sparks of light. The Zephyrian patrol leader watched them on his screen and laughed again. "Look at those pathetic weapons," he told his crew. "Slow-moving projectiles. Our point. Defense will destroy them easily." But as the missiles got closer, something strange happened. Instead of flying in straight lines, they began to dance. Each missile moved like it was alive, dodging and weaving through space. When the Zephyrian guns tried to shoot them down, the missiles were already somewhere else. "What kind of weapons are these?" the patrol leader asked. His voice was not laughing anymore. Dr. Carl Johnson sat at his weapons console aboard the UES Ranger. He was a thin man with thick glasses who had spent his whole life studying how to make things explode. "Each missile has its own computer brain," he explained to Admiral Sullivan. "They can think and react faster than any biological creature." The first wave of missiles hit the lead Zephyrian ship. The enemy's shields flared bright blue as they tried to stop the attack. But human missiles were not like the big, dumb energy blasts the Zephyrians were used to. These weapons were designed to find weak spots and punch through them. The shield around the patrol ship flickered and died. 3 missiles slammed into its hull and exploded deep inside the ship. Fires broke out across 2 decks. "Impossible!" the patrol leader screamed. "Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy." Commander Rick Hayes watched his tactical screen with satisfaction. "Not anymore. Our missiles use adaptive warheads. They study the shield frequency and adjust to punch right through." The second Zephyrian ship tried a different approach. It charged straight at the UES Falcon, Captain Amy Foster's destroyer. The alien ship was twice the size of the human vessel and covered with weapons. "They're trying to ram us," reported Lieutenant Steve Bennett from the Falcon's bridge. "Should we move out of the way?" Captain Foster smiled. "No. Let's show them what human engineering can do. All power to forward shields. Prepare for impact." The yow. 2 ships crashed together in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The Zephyrian ship's front section crumpled like paper. Its hull was made of simple steel plates bolted together. The human ship's hull was made of materials that did not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. The UES Falcon had scratches on its paint. The Zephyrian ship was floating dead in space. "How is that possible?" whispered Bob Wright as he watched the battle. "Their ship was bigger." Dr. Pierce looked up from his science station. "Size doesn't matter if you build smart. Our hulls use carbon fiber weaving with titanium mesh. It's stronger than their solid steel and weighs half as much." The third patrol ship tried to run away. Its captain had seen enough to know these were not normal enemies, but human ships were faster than they looked. Lieutenant Kate Murphy launched her fighters from the UES Ranger. They were small craft, each one piloted by a computer that could think at the speed of light. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like them. "Tiny ships launching from the big ships," reported the fleeing Zephyrian captain. "They move like insects. Very fast insects." The human fighters swarmed around the enemy vessel like angry bees. Their weapons were small but precise. Instead of trying to destroy the whole ship, they targeted specific systems. Communications went dead. Engines stopped working. Weapons powered down. In 3 minutes, the Zephyrian ship was helpless. Admiral Sullivan opened a communication channel to the disabled vessel. This is Admiral Sullivan. Your ship is dead in space. Surrender now, and we will not kill you. The enemy captain appeared on screen. His reptilian face was full of confusion and fear. What are you? No ships in the galaxy fight like this. We're human, Sullivan said simply, and you just learned why that matters. Meanwhile, the main Zephyrian fleet was getting the news. 47 ships had been orbiting the planet bombing innocent people. Now they turned their attention to the 12 human vessels. High Admiral Korath himself appeared on the communication screen. His red eyes were burning with anger. You destroyed my patrol ships. Impossible. What kind of weapons do you have? The kind that work, Admiral Sullivan replied. Korath's face twisted with rage. No matter. You have 12 ships. I have 47. Simple math says you die. Maybe, Sullivan said. But it won't be simple. The Zephyrian fleet began to move. 47 massive warships formed a wall of metal and weapons. Each ship was bigger than anything in the human fleet. Together, they looked like a moving mountain of death. But Admiral Sullivan was not worried. He had fought in the Mars colonial wars where human rebels used small, fast ships against big, slow government vessels. He had learned that in space, being smart was more important than being big. All ships formation Delta, he ordered. Let's show them how humans really fight. The 12 human ships spread out in a pattern that made no sense to the Zephyrians. Instead of forming a battle line like every other race in the galaxy, they scattered in all directions. They're running away, laughed one of the Zephyrian captains. Cowards! But the humans were not running. They were positioning themselves around the enemy fleet like hunters surrounding prey. Captain Foster took the UES Falcon on a wild ride through an asteroid field. The rocks were floating chunks of metal and ice leftovers from when the planets were formed. Her ship danced between them like a bird flying through a forest. The Zephyrian ships that followed her were not so graceful. They were built for straight-line attacks, not fancy flying. 2 enemy vessels crashed into asteroids and exploded. Dr. Johnson launched another wave of missiles, but these were different from the first ones. Instead of exploding when they hit, they attached themselves to enemy ships like metal parasites. What are those things doing? Asked Commander Hayes. Jamming their communications, Johnson replied with a grin. Each missile is now a little radio station broadcasting noise on every frequency they use. They can't talk to each other anymore. The Zephyrian fleet began to fall apart. Without communication, each ship had to fight alone. They were used to simple tactics where everyone did the same thing at the same time. Now they were confused and scared. Sergeant Maya Lopez was watching everything from the Marine section of the UES Ranger. She was getting ready for boarding operations if any enemy ships survived. Admiral, request permission to take prisoners. We need to question them about their slave operations. Granted, Sullivan replied. But be careful, Maya. We don't know how dangerous they are in person. The battle was turning into a rout. Human ships moved through space like dancers, always in the right place at the right time. Zephyrian ships blundered around like blind giants hitting asteroids and each other. Lieutenant Commander Steve Bennett was coordinating the attack from his position on the UES Ranger. Sir, enemy formation is completely broken. They're trying to retreat. Let some of them go, Sullivan ordered. I want them to report back to High Admiral Korath. I want him to know exactly what happened here. As the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away, Admiral Sullivan looked at the planet below. The bombing had stopped. The Threnody people were safe, at least for now. Dr. Pierce was already scanning the planet's surface. Jake, I'm reading thousands of life signs. The Threnody are still alive down there. We saved them. Good, Sullivan said. But this is just the beginning. Korath has 350 more ships out there somewhere, and now he knows we're not helpless. Commander Hayes checked his battle reports. All human ships operational, sir. Minor damage to 3 vessels. We destroyed 15 enemy ships and disabled 8 more. 23 ships destroyed or captured, Sullivan mused. That leaves Korath with about 377 vessels. Still bad odds. Captain Foster's voice came over the communication system from the UES Falcon. Admiral, We've rescued over 2,000 Threnody prisoners from the damaged enemy ships. They're asking who we are and why we helped them. Sullivan thought about that question. Why had Earth sent 12 ships to fight an empire of 400 vessels? Why risk everything for people they had never met? Tell them we're humans, he said finally. And humans don't, like bullies. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the crystal world of Valdoria Prime, High Chancellor Vex stared at his communication screen with 4 wide eyes. The report from the Helios system made no sense. Replay the battle recording, he ordered his military advisor. The hologram showed 12 small human ships dancing through space while huge Zephyrian vessels exploded around them. Chancellor Vex watched a human destroyer ram a ship twice its size and win. He watched tiny fighters disable enemy vessels with surgical precision. This is impossible, he said. No fleet this small can defeat 47 warships. His advisor, General Toth, shook his blue head. The humans are using weapons we have never seen before. Look at these missiles. They move like living creatures. Meanwhile, on the bioship world of the Crystalline Collective, Speaker Zith was having similar problems. Her glass body pulsed with confused light patterns as she studied the same battle footage. How do their ships coordinate so perfectly? She asked her war mind, a specialized part of the collective consciousness. Each vessel acts independently, but they work together like one organism. The war mind's response came as colored lights, flashing through her transparent skin. Unknown technology. Their communication appears instantaneous across any distance. Our bioships require time to share thoughts. In the deep oceans of Aqua Prima, the Threnody elders sang songs of wonder. Their musical voices carried through the water, telling stories of the sky warriors from Terra who had saved their cousins in the Helios system. 12 ships against 47, sang Elder Coral in tones of amazement. Small fish defeating great sharks through wisdom instead of size, but nowhere was the shock greater than in the war room of High Admiral Korath himself. The reptilian commander stood 8 feet tall, his red eyes burning as he watched the battle recordings for the 10th time. Find out everything about these humans, he hissed to his intelligence officers. I want to know how they build their ships. I want to know their tactics. I want to know how many vessels they really have. Commander Scales, his chief of intelligence, bowed low. My lord, we have captured some human technology from the destroyed patrol ships. Our scientists are studying it now. And what have they learned? The materials are unlike anything in our databases. Their hull armor uses elements we cannot identify. Their computer systems are more advanced than our best facilities. Korath's claws scratched deep marks in his metal desk. Impossible. Humans are a young race. They have been in space for less than 2 centuries. How can they be ahead of empires that are thousands of years old? Meanwhile, far from Zephyrian space, the human fleet was moving deeper into enemy territory. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Ranger, studying star charts with Dr. Pierce. The next system is called Dracor, Pierce explained. Intelligence. Reports show it has a slave processing facility. They bring captives from conquered worlds there. Commander Rachel Kim, the intelligence officer, looked up from her station. She was a quiet woman who spoke 5 alien languages and could crack any code. Sir, we're intercepting Zephyrian communications. They're moving ships to protect that facility. How many ships? Sullivan asked. At least 60, maybe more. They're calling in reinforcements from 3 other systems. General Nathan Clark, the ground forces commander, studied the tactical display. He was a big man with gray hair who had fought in wars on a dozen worlds. Admiral, if we're going to hit that facility, we need to move fast. Every hour we wait, more innocent people die. Sullivan nodded. Agreed. But 60 ships is a lot more than we faced at Helios. Dr. Johnson, the weapons specialist, was already running calculations. Sir, I've been analyzing the battle recordings. The Zephyrians learn slowly, but they do learn. They're adapting their tactics. How? Sullivan asked. They're spreading their ships farther apart so our electronic warfare can't jam all of them at once. And they're using asteroids and debris to make it harder for our missiles to maneuver. Captain Foster's voice came over the communication system from the UES Falcon. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador, Morgan wants to speak with you. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Lisa Morgan in the diplomatic station. Behind her, aliens were running back and forth in obvious excitement. Jake, the whole galaxy is talking about what happened at Helios, she said. Every major power wants to know how we did it. What are you telling them? Sullivan asked. The truth. That human ships are more advanced than they expected, but Jake, there's something else. The Valdorians are offering to send 200 ships to help us. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. Yesterday they thought we were a joke. Now they want to help? Everyone wants to help now. The Crystalline Collective is offering bioships. The Aquatic Threnodi want to send their fleet. Even the smaller races are volunteering. Dr. Pierce looked thoughtful. Jake, this could be a trap. What if they just want to study our technology? Maybe, Sullivan agreed. But we could use the help. Korath still has over 350 ships out there. Ambassador Morgan leaned forward. There's more news. The Council is holding an emergency vote tomorrow. They want to make Earth a permanent member with full military authority. That's a big change from laughing at our tiny fleet, Sullivan observed. Respect comes from strength, Jake. You've shown them that humans are strong. After the communication ended, Sullivan called a meeting of his senior officers. Captain Foster came over from the UES Falcon in a small shuttle. The other ship commanders joined by video link. We have a choice, Sullivan began. We can accept help from the other galactic powers, or we can continue alone. Captain Foster spoke first. Sir, I don't trust them. Yesterday we were insects. Today we're their best friends? Something's not right. Commander Kim nodded. I agree. My intelligence reports show several alien fleets moving toward human space. They claim it's to help, but they're bringing a lot of ships for a support mission. General Clark had a different view. Admiral, we're 12 ships against an empire. I don't care why they want to help. We need every advantage we can get. Dr. Pierce was studying his data pad. Jake, I've been analyzing the technology we captured from the Zephyrian ships. Their weapons are crude but powerful. If Korath brings his whole fleet together, even our advantages might not be enough. Petty Officer Dan Thompson, the communications specialist, raised his hand. Sir, I've been monitoring Zephyrian military channels. They're scared. Really scared. They're calling us demons and monsters. Good, Sullivan said grimly. Fear makes people make mistakes. Commander Hayes pulled up a tactical display. Sir, if we're going to hit the Dracor system, we need to decide soon. Every hour we delay, they get stronger. Sullivan looked around at his officers. These were good people who had volunteered to fly into the unknown and fight impossible odds. They trusted him to make the right choice. We continue alone, he decided. But we change our tactics. Instead of announcing ourselves, we hit them, fast and disappear. Let them chase shadows while we free their prisoners. Dr. Johnson smiled. Guerrilla warfare in space. I like it. Set course for Dracor, Sullivan ordered, and send a message to Ambassador Morgan. Tell her to thank the Council for their offer. But Earth handles its own problems. As the 12 human ships jumped into faster-than-light travel, they left behind a galaxy that was finally starting to understand what they were dealing with. The humans were not just advanced. They were dangerous in ways that no alien empire had ever imagined. High Admiral Korath would soon learn that the galaxy's laughter had turned to fear, and fear was something that humans understood very well. The trap was perfect. High Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Death's Edge. Around him in the Korath Prime system, 350 Zephyrian warships waited in a sphere formation that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. The human insects will come, Korath said to his officers. They cannot resist trying to attack our home world. When they do, we will be ready. His intelligence chief, Commander Scales, bowed nervously. My lord, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans have destroyed over 80 of our ships in 3 systems. They fight like nothing we have ever seen. Korath's red eyes burned with anger. 80 ships against 350? Even demons can be overwhelmed by numbers. And this time, we are ready. for their tricks. The Zephyrian fleet had learned from their defeats. Ships were spread far apart so human electronic warfare could not jam them all. Point defense weapons had been upgraded to shoot down the strange human missiles. Most importantly, they had brought every vessel they could find. On the planet below, massive shield generators created a protective dome over the capital city. Millions of Zephyrian civilians watched the sky, confident their military would destroy the human threat once and for all. Then space itself seemed to tear open. The 12 human ships came out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the Zephyrian formation. But something was different this time. As Admiral Sullivan watched his tactical display, each human vessel began to separate into smaller pieces. All ships, execute separation protocol, Sullivan ordered. The UES Ranger split into 3 sections. The command section with the bridge stayed in the center. The weapons section became an independent missile platform. The engine section turned into a fast attack craft. All across the human fleet, the same thing was happening. 12 ships became 36 independent fighting units. "Impossible," shouted Commander Scales as he watched the transformation. "Ships cannot divide like that." But human ships could. Each section had its own power, its own computers, its own weapons. Dr. Pierce had designed them this way after studying how biological creatures could survive losing parts of their bodies. High Admiral Korath recovered from his shock quickly. "All ships attack. Destroy them before they can escape." 350 Zephyrian vessels opened fire at once. Space lit up with energy beams and plasma bolts. It looked like a new star had been born in the Korath system. But the human ships were no longer where the weapons were aimed. Captain Foster's command section dove toward the planet's surface, using the gravity well to accelerate beyond anything the Zephyrians thought possible. Her weapons section launched a cloud of missiles that spread out like deadly seeds. Dr. Johnson's weapons platform began broadcasting on every frequency the Zephyrians used. But instead of jamming their communications, it was playing music. Earth music. The song was called the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and it confused the alien computers. "What is that noise?" demanded Korath. "Some kind of human cultural transmission," replied Scales. But why would they play music during a battle? They found out quickly. The music contained hidden computer code that infected Zephyrian systems. Ships began reporting false targets. Weapons fired at empty space. Navigation computers showed planets where there were only asteroids. Lieutenant Kate Murphy's fighter section swarmed through the enemy formation like angry hornets. Each small craft was controlled by an artificial intelligence that could react faster than any biological pilot. They targeted specific systems on enemy ships, communications, engines, weapons, leaving hulks floating dead in space. But the Zephyrians had numbers on their side. For every ship they lost, 10 more took its place. Slowly, they began to surround the scattered human units. "Admiral," called Commander Hayes from his tactical station. "We're taking damage. The UES Falcon's engine section has been hit. 3 other units are reporting hull breaches." Sullivan watched the battle unfold on his screens. The plan was working, but barely. They needed something more to tip the balance. "Maya," he called to Sergeant Lopez. "It's time for the boarding parties." Sergeant Lopez had been waiting for this moment. She and her Marines launched in small pods that looked like pieces of space debris. The Zephyrians were so busy fighting the main human force that they didn't notice the pods drifting toward their largest ships. The first boarding pod hit Korath's flagship like a tiny meteor. Sergeant Lopez and her team cut through the hull, in seconds using tools that burned hotter than the surface of a star. They found themselves in a corridor full of surprised Zephyrian soldiers. The aliens had never fought humans face to face. They were bigger and stronger, but humans were faster and smarter. Within minutes, Lopez's team had captured the ship's engineering section. "Bridge, this is Sergeant Lopez," she radioed. "We have control of their main power system." "Understood. Maya, shut it down." The Death's Edge went dark. Emergency lights flickered on as the massive ship lost main power. Without their flagship coordinating the attack, the Zephyrian formation began to fall apart. More boarding pods hit other enemy vessels. Human Marines were trained to fight in space, something most alien races had forgotten how to do. One by one, key enemy ships went silent. High Admiral Korath found himself trapped on his own bridge as human marines took control of his ship. He had never imagined that anyone would dare to board a Zephyrian vessel. The bridge door exploded, inward. Sergeant Lopez stepped through the smoke, her weapon ready. Behind her came 5 other marines in powered armor that made them look like metal giants. "High Admiral Korath," Lopez said calmly. "You are under arrest for crimes against peaceful species." Korath drew his ceremonial sword, a curved blade as long as a human arm. "I am Korath the Conqueror. I have destroyed 1,000 worlds. I will not surrender to insects." The fight lasted exactly 3 seconds. Korath was fast and strong, but Sergeant Lopez had been training for combat since she was 12 years old. When it was over, the High Admiral was on the floor with his own sword at his throat. "Surrender your fleet," Lopez ordered, "or I will execute you as a war criminal." Korath looked around his bridge. Half his officers were unconscious. The other half were surrounded by human marines. His mighty flagship was controlled by creatures he had called insects. I surrender," he whispered. The word spread across the Zephyrian fleet through channels the humans had captured. Ship after ship powered down their weapons and shields. Within an hour, the greatest military force in this part of the galaxy had given up without destroying a single human vessel. Admiral Sullivan stood on his bridge, looking out at 350 enemy ships floating helpless in space. Around them, his 36 combat units were already rejoining into 12 complete vessels. Dr. Pierce was checking damage reports. "Jake, we lost 1 engine section and took moderate damage to 3 other units, but we can repair everything." "Casualties?" Sullivan asked. 7 wounded Marines, no deaths. Commander Hayes was monitoring alien communication channels. "Sir, we're getting surrender messages from Zephyrian forces in 12 other star systems. Word travels fast." Captain Foster's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, the planet below is asking to surrender too. They want to negotiate terms." Sullivan thought about all the worlds the Zephyrians had attacked, all the innocent people they had killed or enslaved, all the civilizations they had destroyed. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender," he said. "But there are conditions. All slaves will be freed immediately. All stolen property will be returned, and they will pay to rebuild every world they damaged." Within hours, the news reached the Galactic Council. Ambassador Morgan stood before the assembled alien representatives, trying not to smile as she delivered her report. "The Zephyrian Empire has surrendered unconditionally to Earth forces," she announced. "High Admiral Korath is in custody. All Zephyrian military forces have laid down their arms." The Great Hall was silent. Then Chancellor Vex of the Valdorian Empire stood up. His 4 arms gestured toward the human ambassador. "We offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Council," he said formally, "with all rights and privileges of a major power." Similar offers came from every other alien race. The Crystalline Collective wanted to study human technology. The aquatic Threnodi offered to write songs about human heroes. Even the smallest races wanted to sign treaties with Earth. But Ambassador Morgan had her orders. "Earth appreciates these offers," she said politely. "But we have a different proposal. Instead of joining your council as members, we offer to serve as peacekeepers. When bullies threaten innocent species, call us. We'll handle it." 6 months later, Admiral Sullivan stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt UES Ranger. Through the window, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and white jewel. Around it, construction ships were building new vessels based on the lessons learned in the war. Dr. Pierce joined him at the window. "The new ships will be even better," he said. "Faster, stronger, smarter." "Good," Sullivan replied, "because I have a feeling we'll need them. The galaxy is a big place, and there are probably other bullies out there. The other races still don't understand how we did it, do they?" Pierce asked. Sullivan smiled. "They think it was our technology, our weapons, our tactics." He paused, watching Earth turn slowly in space. They still don't realize the real secret, which is humans don't.